Your soulmate chose $1 million marriage over you. Now the real reason behind that decision has finally been exposed. My beloved child, don't skip, stay till the end, because something huge is waiting, because the person your heart once recognized as your soulmate made a choice that looked impossible to understand. They walked away from you and stepped toward $1 million marriage, a life surrounded by status, comfort, influence, and everything the outside world calls success. From where you stood, the answer seemed painfully obvious: they chose money over love. But what if that was never the full story? What if the wealth was only the visible part of a decision hiding something much deeper? Don't skip, because the truth behind that choice is finally beginning to surface, and once you understand what was happening behind closed doors, you may see their decision completely differently. There was a conversation you never heard. There was pressure you never witnessed. And most importantly, there was one reason they kept hidden, because revealing it would have changed everything between you. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate did not simply wake up one morning and decide that luxury mattered more than the connection you shared. Long before that marriage appeared, they were carrying a private conflict they never knew how to explain. Every time they imagined choosing you, their heart moved forward. But their fear pulled them backward. They could see the authenticity between you. They could feel how different it was. And strangely, that became part of what frightened them. Real love demanded honesty. Real love required them to stop hiding behind appearances. But the $1 million marriage offered something completely different: certainty, approval, security, and a life that already looked successful before it even began. So when the final decision arrived, they chose what looked safer instead of what felt deeper. Yet here is where everything changes. The moment they made that choice, they expected the thoughts of you to disappear. They expected distance to silence the connection. Instead, something happened that they were completely unprepared for. And this is the detail that almost nobody around them knows. After choosing that marriage, they began realizing that having everything on paper does not automatically create the feeling they had been searching for inside. The impressive future they selected could answer practical questions, but it could not erase the question connected to you: what if I walked away from the one person who truly understood me? Don't skip now, because that question is only the beginning. Something from the past has recently forced them to look at their decision again, and it has exposed why they really chose that $1 million marriage. It was not simply greed. It was not simply ambition. There was a promise involved, an expectation they felt unable to escape, and one private truth about their future that made them believe choosing you would cost far more than anyone realized. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because when that hidden reason finally comes into the light, the person who appeared to choose millions over you may turn out to have been running from something money could never solve. But what happened next was the first crack in the perfect story everyone believed. My beloved child, don't skip, because the $1 million marriage was supposed to give your soulmate everything they thought they needed. Security, recognition, a powerful future, and a life nobody could question. Yet after stepping into that world, they discovered something nobody had prepared them for. The more perfect everything looked from the outside, the louder one unanswered question became inside them: why does the life I chose still feel incomplete? They had believed choosing certainty would eventually silence every memory of you. Instead, ordinary moments began bringing those memories back. A familiar phrase. A quiet evening. A place that reminded them of an old conversation. Suddenly, the person they had tried so hard to leave in the past was becoming impossible to forget. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. This was not simply regret appearing after a difficult choice. Your soulmate was beginning to understand that the million-dollar marriage had never been their first emotional choice. It had been their answer to a fear they were too afraid to admit. Then came the revelation that changed everything. Before that marriage was chosen, your soulmate had been made to believe that choosing you would mean walking away from a future other people had already planned for them. There were expectations surrounding their name, their position, their responsibilities, and the kind of life they were supposed to build. The million-dollar marriage represented more than wealth, it represented approval. It meant they would not have to disappoint certain people, explain their heart, or take the uncertain road that came with choosing someone they genuinely loved. Don't skip, because here is the part they never told you: they were not comparing you with money. They were comparing courage with comfort. And at that moment, comfort won. They convinced themselves that feelings could be replaced, that time would make the connection disappear, and that eventually they would become completely satisfied with the decision. But something huge was waiting for them too. Because once the excitement around the new life became normal, there was nothing left to distract them from the truth they had buried. Now the secret behind their decision is beginning to expose itself, and it goes deeper than anyone expected. Your soulmate had heard something about your future before making that final choice, something that made them believe you were destined to move forward without them. Instead of asking you directly, they accepted what they were told. They believed staying with you could eventually leave them with uncertainty, while the million-dollar marriage seemed guaranteed. That misunderstanding became the invisible turning point. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and the next truth changes the entire meaning of what happened. The information they trusted may never have been completely true. Someone close to the situation knew exactly how powerful your connection was, knew your soulmate was hesitating, and said something at precisely the moment when one sentence could influence everything. Your soulmate made a life-changing choice believing they were protecting their future. But now they are discovering that the future they walked away from may have been the one they actually wanted, and the identity of the person behind that crucial conversation is about to make the entire story impossible to see the same way again. Then one forgotten detail changed the meaning of everything. My beloved child, don't skip, because your soulmate recently discovered that the story they believed about you was missing one crucial piece. For all this time, they had carried the idea that you were eventually going to choose a different path, that your future was moving somewhere they could never follow, and that staying connected to you would only delay an ending that was supposedly inevitable. That belief made the million-dollar marriage feel like the sensible choice. But now something has surfaced that they were never supposed to see. A conversation from the past was remembered differently. A detail that once seemed meaningless suddenly connected with another detail. And your soulmate began asking the question they had avoided for far too long: what if I made my biggest decision using only half the truth? Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The moment that question entered their mind, the beautiful explanation they had built around their marriage began to look completely different. They started remembering how quickly everything happened, how certain people encouraged them not to hesitate, and how strangely every conversation seemed designed to push them away from you before they could speak to you honestly. What they discovered next was even more surprising. The person who influenced that decision may not have needed to invent an enormous story, they only needed to take something small and make it sound final. A possibility became a certainty. A temporary situation was presented like a permanent future. Your soulmate heard exactly what their fear was already prepared to believe, and instead of coming to you for the truth, they stepped backward. Don't skip now, because this is where the million-dollar marriage finally makes sense. It was never simply about choosing someone richer. It was about choosing the future that appeared impossible to lose. They thought wealth meant stability. They thought approval meant peace. They thought a carefully arranged life would protect them from disappointment. But there was one thing nobody explained: security can organize a future, but it cannot decide what the heart will remember. And once your soulmate realized that their original assumption about you might have been wrong, memories they had buried started returning with a completely different meaning. Suddenly, your silence did not look like rejection. Your distance did not look like indifference. And the ending they had accepted no longer looked inevitable. Now comes the part that could overturn everything they believed. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate has begun quietly revisiting the exact moment they chose that million-dollar marriage, and one question keeps returning: why was I never encouraged to speak to you before deciding? That question has become impossible to ignore because the answer points toward a truth much bigger than money. Someone understood that one honest conversation between you and your soulmate could have changed the outcome completely. One conversation could have removed the fear. One conversation could have exposed the misunderstanding. One conversation could have made the million-dollar future suddenly look far less powerful than the connection they were leaving behind. And that is why what happens next matters so much. Your soulmate is beginning to realize that they did not choose between two people with complete information. They chose between a carefully presented certainty and a version of you they may never have verified. Don't skip. The next revelation is the one they were least prepared to discover, because there is a reason that crucial conversation between you never happened. And once that reason comes into the light, the person who benefited most from keeping you apart may finally become impossible to overlook. And suddenly, the missing piece appeared where nobody expected it. My beloved child, don't skip, because your soulmate has finally started understanding why that one honest conversation with you never happened. Every time they came close to reaching out, another voice reminded them of what they could lose. Every time they questioned the million-dollar marriage, they were shown another reason to believe it was the safest future available. It was subtle. Nobody needed to command them. Nobody needed to create some dramatic scene. All it took was carefully timed doubt. A reminder about security here. A question about your future there. A suggestion that you might already be moving on. Little by little, hesitation became distance, and distance became a decision. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate now realizes the most shocking part: the person influencing them may have genuinely believed they were helping. They saw the million-dollar marriage as the perfect opportunity and your connection as an unpredictable risk. But they never understood what existed between you. They measured the future through status, certainty, and appearances while your soulmate was trying to measure something that could never be placed on paper. And by the time your soulmate understood the difference, the decision had already been made. But here is where the story takes the turn they never saw coming. The million-dollar marriage gave your soulmate access to the exact life they had been told would make everything easier, yet that life eventually forced them to confront the question they had avoided: if this was truly the right choice, why did they still need to convince themselves? Don't skip now. Something huge is waiting for you. They began replaying moments with you that once seemed ordinary, and those moments suddenly became more valuable than the grand promises surrounding their new future. Not because money had become meaningless, but because they finally understood what money could never guarantee: being deeply understood without constantly performing. Around you, they had experienced something effortless. They could speak without calculating every word. They could imagine a future without needing it to impress anyone. And that realization exposed the real reason behind their choice. They had not walked away because you were worth less. They walked away because choosing you demanded a kind of courage they did not possess at that moment. The million-dollar marriage required almost no explanation to the world. You required them to stand against expectations and trust something they could not prove. They chose what everyone else could understand, and lost what only their heart understood. Now the final layer is beginning to open, and this is where everything you thought you knew may reverse. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate has discovered that the person who planted those doubts did not know one critical fact about you. There was something you were preparing, something connected to the future they assumed you could never offer, and had your soulmate known about it before making that decision, the entire outcome could have been different. This is why their thoughts keep returning to the past. They are no longer asking whether choosing the million-dollar marriage was logical. They are asking whether it was based on an assumption that should never have controlled their life. And there is another surprise waiting. Evidence of what you were actually planning may be closer to them than they realize. Once they understand what you truly intended, they will have to confront the one question no amount of status can answer: what happens when you discover that the person you walked away from was quietly building the very future you believed could only exist somewhere else? Don't skip, because what comes next is not about regret alone. It is about the truth your soulmate never received in time, and that truth is about to reveal just how different your story could have been. Then the truth they had missed finally came within reach. My beloved child, don't skip, because what your soulmate is beginning to understand could completely rewrite the moment they chose that million-dollar marriage over you. The future they thought you could never provide was never as impossible as they had been led to believe. While they were being told that your path was uncertain, you were quietly becoming stronger, clearer, and more prepared for what was ahead. They judged your future by one unfinished chapter, while the million-dollar marriage was presented to them like a completed book. That comparison was never fair. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate is now realizing they did not walk away from someone without direction. They may have walked away before your direction became visible. And that realization has created a question they cannot silence anymore: what if I left just before everything was about to change? Suddenly, the security they once considered unbeatable does not feel like the victory they imagined. Because for the first time, they are seeing that the choice was not between wealth and uncertainty. It may have been between instant comfort and a future that simply needed more time. But the next discovery cuts even deeper. Your soulmate has started remembering the small things you once said about the life you wanted to create. At the time, those words sounded like distant possibilities. Now those same words are beginning to look like clues they should have taken seriously. Don't skip. They are connecting your old promises with what they can finally see about you now, and the picture is becoming impossible to ignore. You were never asking them to believe in nothing. You were asking them to believe before the results became obvious. That was the test they failed to recognize. The $1 million marriage arrived with visible proof, while your future arrived with potential. One demanded almost no faith, the other demanded patience. And your soulmate chose what could be measured immediately. Yet something huge is waiting for you, because they have now learned another detail. Someone around them knew you were preparing for a major change. That person knew your situation was not permanent, but your soulmate never received the full picture. Whether it was misunderstanding, timing, or someone believing they knew what was best, one critical truth never reached the person who needed it most. And now your soulmate is standing emotionally closer to the answer than ever before. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. They are finally seeing that the $1 million marriage was never the real reason they walked away, it was the solution they chose for a fear built around incomplete information. They feared waiting. They feared uncertainty. They feared disappointing people who expected them to choose the impressive future placed directly in front of them. But beneath all of that was an even deeper fear. What if they chose you and later discovered they had been wrong? So they protected themselves by choosing the option that looked impossible to question. And now life has handed them the opposite question. What if walking away from you was the decision they should have questioned most? Don't skip, because the biggest revelation has not arrived yet. There is still one piece of information your soulmate does not fully know, something connected to what you were preparing before they left. When that final piece reaches them, they will understand why the timing of their decision matters so much. Because they may not have chosen the $1 million marriage after your story ended. They may have chosen it only moments before your story was about to change completely, and then came the discovery that made their old decision impossible to look at the same way again. My beloved child, don't skip, because your soulmate is beginning to understand that the future they doubted was already changing before they walked away. They simply never stayed long enough to see it. While everyone around them focused on the $1 million marriage, the impressive lifestyle, and the certainty it seemed to offer, something far more important was developing quietly in the background. You were becoming the person they once hoped you could become. Not for them. Not to compete with anyone. But because your own path was finally beginning to open. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The shocking part is not that your soulmate chose visible success. The shocking part is that they may have made that choice at the exact moment when the uncertainty surrounding you was about to disappear. They thought they were escaping years of waiting, but they might have been only a short distance away from seeing everything differently. And now, as pieces of that truth reach them, one thought keeps returning: why didn't I wait just a little longer? What happened after that realization was even more powerful. Don't skip, because your soulmate started comparing two versions of their life. The one everyone congratulated them for choosing and the one nobody knew they were still imagining. The first had everything people could point toward and admire. The second had you, the person connected to conversations, dreams, and moments they could never completely replace. That comparison finally exposed something they had misunderstood from the beginning. They believed the most valuable future would automatically create the deepest happiness. But value and connection were never the same thing. $1 million marriage could offer opportunities, comfort, and an impressive world, yet none of those things could answer the question buried inside them: did I choose this because I truly wanted it, or because I was afraid to choose what I truly wanted? Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because once that question appeared, your soulmate could no longer blame timing alone. They had to confront their own fear. They had to admit that choosing you would have required patience when everyone else demanded certainty. And they were not ready then. But now another truth is moving closer, and this one could become the biggest turning point yet. Your soulmate has learned that one of the assumptions behind their decision was completely outdated. The version of your future they were warned about no longer matches the reality unfolding around you. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. They are beginning to understand that they made a permanent choice using temporary information. And that realization carries a weight no amount of luxury can remove. The real reason behind the $1 million marriage has finally become clearer: it was never proof that someone else mattered more than you. It was proof that fear, timing, outside expectations, and visible certainty became louder than a connection they did not have the courage to defend. But one final question remains, and it is the question that could change everything that follows: what happens when your soulmate finally sees the complete truth about the future they walked away from? Because there is one last detail they still have not discovered, and when it reaches them, they may finally understand that the choice they believed secured their future actually revealed what their heart had been trying to tell them all along. And now the final missing detail has started moving toward them. My beloved child, don't skip, because this is where everything your soulmate believed about that $1 million marriage begins to collapse under one undeniable realization. For so long, they told themselves they had chosen the stronger future. They repeated the same explanation until it sounded unquestionable: the timing with you was wrong, your path was uncertain, and the opportunity in front of them was simply too secure to ignore. But recently, they discovered something that challenged every part of that story. The future they thought you could never build was already taking shape while they were preparing to leave. The change was simply happening quietly. They saw your struggle, but they never saw what that struggle was producing. They saw the unfinished version of you and assumed it was the final version. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate is finally realizing that they compared another person's finished picture with your beginning, and then made one of the biggest decisions of their life from that comparison. Now the question haunting them is no longer, did I choose security? It is, what did I fail to see in you before I chose it? But something even more surprising has emerged from that question. Don't skip, because your soulmate has begun remembering one particular moment differently. There was a time when you tried to tell them that things were about to change. Maybe you could not reveal every detail. Maybe the results were not visible yet. But there was confidence in the way you spoke, and they remember it now because your words no longer sound like hope. They sound like something you already knew. At the time, fear made them dismiss it. The $1 million future was standing directly in front of them, while your future required them to trust what they could not yet see. So they chose evidence over belief. Yet now the evidence is changing sides. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate is beginning to see signs that what you told them was real. And with every new sign, the decision they once considered perfectly logical becomes harder to defend. The deepest realization is not that they underestimated what you might achieve. It is that they underestimated the person you were becoming. They thought they were leaving uncertainty behind, but they may have actually left behind the one person who would have understood what building a meaningful future together truly required. And this is where the real reason behind their choice finally stands exposed. Your soulmate did not choose $1 million marriage because their heart calculated your worth and decided someone else was more valuable. They chose it because certainty arrived before courage did. Don't skip now, because something huge is waiting for you. When the decision had to be made, they trusted what was already proven instead of what could become extraordinary. They allowed expectations, appearances, timing, and fear of uncertainty to speak louder than the connection they shared with you. But life has now placed them in front of a truth they cannot negotiate with. Sometimes the safest-looking choice can still leave the biggest unanswered question. And theirs has your name attached to it. They are beginning to wonder what would have happened if they had asked one more question, waited one more moment, or trusted you one more time. Yet there is still something they do not know. The biggest revelation is not about how far you have come. It is about what you had already decided concerning them before they walked away. Stay till the end, because when that truth finally surfaces, your soulmate will realize they misunderstood not only your future, but also what you were secretly preparing to offer them. And now the truth they were never prepared to hear is finally standing at the door. My beloved child, don't skip, because while your soulmate believed you were uncertain about the future, you had already made a quiet decision about them. You were not planning to disappear. You were not building a life that had no place for them. You were preparing to reach a point where you could finally say, "Now I'm ready to build something real." But they left before that moment became visible. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. This is the revelation that changes the entire story. Your soulmate believed they were choosing between a guaranteed future and someone who could not promise one, when the reality may have been completely different. You were never asking them to wait forever. You were asking for enough time to turn your intentions into something solid. And now they are beginning to discover that the future they thought existed only inside that $1 million marriage was quietly being built on your side too. Suddenly, their decision does not feel like choosing the better opportunity. It feels like leaving seconds before a locked door was about to open. But there is another layer, and this one reaches much deeper than money. Don't skip now. Your soulmate has started understanding that what you were preparing was never about competing with wealth. It was about creating something genuine together. They had been surrounded by people talking about numbers, appearances, connections, comfort, and what their marriage would look like from the outside. Meanwhile, the future you imagined was built around something completely different: partnership. That difference seemed small when the decision was made, but now it feels enormous. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate can finally see why memories of you refuse to disappear. They were not remembering luxury. They were remembering how it felt to be understood. They were remembering conversations where they did not need to impress anyone. They were remembering the person who saw them before the million-dollar choice existed. And now the most uncomfortable question has arrived: did I exchange something rare for something everyone told me was valuable? That question is powerful because nobody else can answer it for them. Not the people who advised them. Not the impressive life surrounding them. Only their own heart knows why the question keeps returning. Now everything leads toward one final revelation. Your soulmate is realizing that the real reason behind their decision was never simply money, it was fear disguised as certainty. They feared choosing a future they could not immediately prove. They feared standing against expectations. They feared trusting something that required patience. So when a million-dollar marriage appeared with an instant picture of stability, they chose what looked complete. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. What they could not understand then was that your story was not incomplete, it was still unfolding. And by the time they finally recognized the difference, you had changed too. You were no longer standing in the same place waiting for someone else to decide your worth. That may become the greatest shock of all. Because your soulmate's biggest realization may not be that they once had a chance with you. It may be discovering that while they were questioning the decision they made, you were becoming strong enough to stop needing them to reverse it. And there is one last truth still waiting beyond this moment. What happens when the person who chose certainty finally comes looking for the connection they abandoned, only to discover that you now have a choice too?